Now, from CBS News Miami, this is Facing South Florida with Jim DeFede.
Welcome to Facing South Florida. I'm Jim DeFede. Over the last few years, we have seen a startling increase in anti-Semitic attacks across the country, and particularly here in Florida. FBI Director Christopher Wray recently testified before Congress that although only 2.4% of Americans are Jewish, 63% of all religiously motivated hate crimes are against Jews. And in Florida, we have seen a 300% rise in anti-Semitic attacks since 2012. Now, we've discussed the problem in Florida in the past. Last year, we reported on this report from the Anti-Defamation League, Hate in the Sunshine State. But this is not a problem that gets fixed easily or quickly. So I wanted to continue the conversation about anti-Semitism in our community. Now, when he became president, President Joe Biden named Deborah Lipstadt as a special envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism, the first person to hold that position. She was confirmed by the U.S. Senate last year, and this week I spoke to Ambassador Lipstadt and Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
I'm going to give you an answer which might surprise some of your listeners. One of the first things I felt I have to do, and that I've been doing in the 16 months I've been in office, is to get people to understand what is anti-Semitism. Too often they ignore it, they laugh it off, they don't think it's serious, they don't think it's important. They look around and they only see Jews who seem to be well situated. What are they complaining about? So to get people to understand what it is, and to get people to speak out against it, Jews and non-Jews, it doesn't matter, to say that's unacceptable. You can't say that. You can't do that. That is prejudice. And the other thing that I feel very strongly about, and I think the Congresswoman shares my views on this, as well as many other things, is that it's also necessary for people to understand the interconnectedness of anti-Semitism. That the people who hate Jews and despise Judaism despise other minorities, despise other groups, despise other religions, and that you have to fight this strongly, but you also have to recognize you can't fight in silos.
I couldn't agree with the ambassador more, and it's been really such a privilege to work so closely with her. And Jim, that's one of the reasons that I know you're aware I hosted really the first of its kind in our community, a summit to combat anti-Semitism here in South Florida, because we've repeatedly had to come together as a community across faiths, culture, and various levels of leadership to really call out attacks on the Jewish community and attacks on other communities, frankly, because we wanted to make sure that we came together around the notion that an attack on one community is an attack on all. But we have had a recent precipitous rise in anti-Semitism here, and it's come in the form of everything from graffiti sprawled on playgrounds to literal physical attacks on an individual who was speaking Hebrew in my district, to things hurled at individuals, to flyers on anti-Semitic flyers on driveways. But the education that's so critical that Ambassador Lipstadt just mentioned is it's not just people speaking out against overt anti-Semitism. There is a lot of unfamiliarity with what certain phrases and anti-Semitic tropes are, and that have become so common and embedded in our lexicon that we also have to use the opportunity, like Jewish American Heritage Month is, to educate our fellow Americans who may not be as familiar with the Jewish heritage and traditions, and that we're a religion and a rich heritage and a culture, and the contributions we've made to the success of the United States of America.
Ambassador, is there something about our political discourse today that is allowing or emboldening these types of brazen acts? Because I'm trying to discern whether or not these are folks who are committing these anti-Semitic acts, whether or not they always had these feelings but felt that they had to suppress expressing it. And is there something now that lets them feel as if this is something that is okay to publicly come out? Or are we creating a new generation of anti-Semitic individuals and groups?
My answer is yes. On one hand, it is a atmosphere where people who may have felt this way before now feel it's okay to say it. And that's not just about anti-Semitism, about racism, homophobia, misogyny, things that they would have said maybe quietly one to the other. They now feel it's okay to say, and they have a medium, social media, which I use all the time, but their misuse of social media is so dangerous. So that's one part. But as in the second part of your question, in creating a new generation, people, kids, young people, and not so young people see this and say, oh, I've heard that about Jews. I've heard that about whatever you fill in the name of the group. Oh, yeah. And so it both allows and it creates. It's sort of like a toxic mass coming down a hill. It's toxic in and of itself, but as it spreads, it infects the groundwork.
Congresswoman, I know that one of the things that concerns you is the type of political discourse that you're seeing around the country, but also here in Florida. Do you attribute it to more of a responsibility by elected officials to stand up to it more, to repudiate it, even among those who they may consider supporters of theirs? And is enough being done along that regard?
You know, I think it's important for leaders to take responsibility to call out anti-Semitism, as the ambassador said, but it is incumbent upon all good people to call out and to name the hate that is spewed by others, whether it's overt or whether it's indirect, and someone may not realize that they have communicated in an offensive and discriminatory and bigoted way. And I think it's really important to stress what Ambassador Lipstadt just mentioned, is that because hate has no borders, and the exponential increase that we've seen has really resulted significantly because of the hate that is virally spreading online. And our social media companies, certainly individuals who are making these posts, have a responsibility to be called out and to bring their activity to a halt. But the social media companies need to be held accountable, because they are using their technology through their algorithms to continually deliver more content, more hate content, to people whose eyeballs seek it. We have to make sure that we balance the need for social media companies to take responsibility themselves, to pull down hate, which they're not doing aggressively enough, and also to regulate it when they refuse.
I know the FBI director recently testified before Congress that, although American Jews account for 2.4% of the population, 63% of religiously motivated hate crimes were against Jewish individuals. And Ambassador, I noted in an op-ed you wrote, it was something that made me think about this a little bit differently. You wrote that there is no Jewish institution that does not have security at the door. At my synagogue, police officers and congregants patrol the grounds. If they do not recognize you as a regular, they question you. It's different from the church across the street, where the doors are open and all who wish to enter are welcome. It's a reality, but it's also a sad reality, but especially given what we saw with Tree of Life and some of the other attacks that we've seen over time.
When you stand in front of the synagogue I attend in Atlanta, across the street is a large church with which we have very good relations. Its doors are open. All who want to come, welcome. And when you approach our synagogue, the gate is closed. There's even on Shabbat, there's a police, especially on Shabbat, there's a police car there with the light flashing, and they're going to ask you who you are. And if you pass muster, they're going to welcome you. But it's not a very welcoming situation. Or we have day schools, and I know you have many Jewish day schools in Southern Florida, where the kids are used to the fact that when the carpool pulls up, instead of just getting online with all the other parents or people picking up the carpools, that there's going to be a guard there asking who you are. That's their reality. There are far worse things. Just a few months ago, I was in Tunisia, and I went to the island of Jerba, off the coast of Tunisia, where there is an age-old festival held between Passover and the Feast of Weeks, Shavuot. And it's been going on for thousands of years. Jews come, they celebrate. It was infectious. It was infectious to be part of something so age-old. It was infectious to be part of this celebration, which attracts Jews worldwide and non-Jews, because it's such an interesting historical phenomenon. And there is a Jewish community living in the midst of this Muslim community, and they've lived together in harmony for centuries. Some Tunisian officer stationed on the island took his gun and drove to the synagogue and killed 4 people at the synagogue, and previously had killed one of his colleagues when he left his post. And I had been there 24 hours before, in the very spot where the shooting took place. And it's horrific. You know, you mentioned Tree of Life Synagogue. I'm going to visit there next week. The building is about to be torn down. Who would want to worship in a building that was the site of such carnage?
I was just going to add, and I was just at Tree of Life Synagogue a few weeks ago and met with the families and the rabbi, and actually walked through. I was right after the last part of the trial, and walked through with the families who had not been through since the shooting for the first time. And it was devastating. And so as dark and as horrific as that experience was, you have right in our own community, the Chabad of Southwest Broward, who has had a very close working relationship and friendship with the mosque right next door to them for decades. And that's why the U.S. national strategy to counter anti-Semitism that President Biden insisted upon is so critical, because it's going to take a whole of government approach to make sure that we can embed the unity and the policies to ensure that we can have the kind of pushback necessary and the legal infrastructure necessary to stop anti-Semitism in its tracks, and to raise enough awareness and education to ensure that naturally occurs as well.